So, in today's explainer, we're diving deep into the frankly shocking finance stats of the average person. You know those alarm bells you constantly see online? Well, we're going to see exactly why they are shocking for completely the wrong reasons. And to kick things off, I want you to picture a guy named Desmond, just sitting at his kitchen table in Dayton, Ohio, holding a piece of paper that feels, well, incredibly heavy.
Right, let's get into it. Desmond installs heating and AC, and he's staring at his retirement statement. The number printed there is $44,000. He reads it twice. Then he picks up his phone, and the very first headline flashing on his screen declares that the average American retirement account just hit an all-time record of $167,000. So Desmond does what any reasonable person would do, right? He quietly assumes he's completely failed. He just folds the paper in half, tosses it in a drawer, and assumes he somehow missed a crucial financial meeting in his 20s that literally everybody else attended.
But here's the crazy part, that $167,000 headline, it is totally factually true, but it represents the mean average, not the reality of the everyday person. Desmond is actually the most statistically normal guy in America, yet this number makes him feel completely inadequate. Both numbers are accurate, but the massive space between them represents the absolute most expensive piece of misinformation in your financial life.
It's a perfect illustration of the huge gap between the rumor of the mean and the reality of the median. Desmond's 44 grand is the median retirement balance, and that's based on real data from Vanguard covering millions of actual accounts. The $167,000 headline, exact same data set on the exact same day. The median is just the person standing dead center in the line, while the mean, well, it's a mathematical distortion.
Section 1. The average illusion. Mean versus reality.
Understanding this mathematical illusion is absolutely critical. Imagine putting 9 guys who make $50,000 a year into a room, and then you invite one guy who makes $10 million a year to come hang out with them. Suddenly, the mean average income in that room skyrockets to just under $1.5 million. Boom! According to the mean average, everyone in that room is a millionaire, which is total garbage if you're one of the 9 guys still trying to figure out how to pay for a busted transmission. When the millionaire leaves, the average collapses, but nobody's actual life changed one bit.
Section 2. The $400 question. Emergency cash.
To really grasp the everyday experience, we got to look at the daily struggle. Every single year, the Federal Reserve asks Americans this beautifully simple question. If a $400 emergency landed on you tomorrow, could you cover it purely in cash? Not by swiping a credit card, not by borrowing from your brother, and not by digging $20 out of an old winter coat. Just cash. And we're talking about $400 here. Not a massive medical crisis, just, a set of brake pads or a water heater making that weird noise you've been generously pretending is just a quirk. Shockingly, nearly 4 in 10 adults in the richest country in human history say no. Roughly 37% absolutely cannot absorb a $400 hit without borrowing. And what's really wild is that this number has actually gotten worse since 2021, back when the government was mailing out checks, despite 3 solid years of headlines telling us how red-hot the economy is. So what actually happens when that emergency hits? Boom, right onto a credit card. And almost nobody does this math out loud. The average interest rate on cards carrying a balance is currently hovering around 22%, with some new ones pushing past 25%. Think about that friendly little minimum payment at the bottom of your statement, usually about 2%. On a $2,000 balance, your minimum payment is $40. Out of that $40, $36 goes straight to interest. A measly $4 actually touches the principal debt. And that brings us to this absolutely brutal realization. Paying $40 a month to move the needle by $4 isn't a payment plan. It's a subscription to your own past. This exact math is how Americans collectively paid $160 billion in credit card interest in a single year. That staggering amount is purely interest. It's basically a nationwide convenience fee we're all paying simply for not having $400 up front.
Section 3. True cost. Cars and cards.
Now, if the credit card is the wound, the car is the weapon. Right now, the average payment on a new car in America is roughly $770 a month, and a used car is about $530. Nearly 19% of new car buyers, so roughly 1 in 5, are signing up for monthly payments over $1,000, and they are doing this on 60, 72, and sometimes even 84-month schedules. Those used to be loan terms reserved for buying a house. For most people, it's not a luxury lifestyle choice. The car is literally how you get to the job that pays for the car. It acts as a toll booth with a steering wheel.
But check out the incredible opportunity cost hidden inside that $770 payment. If you took that average payment and invested it instead at an 8% annual return over 40 years, it compounds to roughly $2.4 million. Let that really sink in for a second. The average American is not too poor to become a millionaire. The reality is that the average American is simply financing depreciating assets instead of buying appreciating ones.
And this kind of pressure trickles all the way down to basic survival, creating a solvency crisis for people like Renata. She's a 29-year-old dental hygienist making 58 grand a year. To buy groceries, she relies on buy now, pay later services. Why? Because payday is Friday and her kid needs to eat on Tuesday. Roughly 29% of people using these services are using them for groceries. Every Sunday night, Renata opens 4 different apps, doing complex arithmetic across 4 screens just to figure out what day of the week she's actually allowed to buy chicken. She doesn't call this budgeting, she calls it surviving the gap.
When you break down our staggering total American household debt, which just crossed $18.8 trillion, you realize it's not a pile of luxury yachts. It's $13 trillion in houses people actually need to live in, $1.5 trillion in cars just to get to work, $1.5 trillion in degrees they were told they absolutely had to have, and over $1 trillion in credit cards that mostly bought groceries and brake pads. Add in a housing market where the median price-to-income ratio has hit a crushing 5-to-1, up from 2.2 in 1970, and we are looking at a country literally putting its own survival on layaway.
Section 4. The retirement check, savings reality. Let's flip over to the other side of the ledger.
Let's look at the fragility of our savings and go back to Desmond with his median $44,000 retirement balance. The standard financial rule of thumb says you can safely withdraw about 4% of your savings each year. Well, 4% of Desmond's account yields just $1,765 a year. That breaks down to exactly $147 a month. Think about that. The median American's retirement plan pays out just $147 a month, which means, honestly, most Americans don't actually have a retirement plan. They just have Social Security, plus a tip. And the very foundation of that system is cracking right now. About 78% of retirees rely heavily on Social Security, but the latest trustees report projects the retirement trust fund runs dry in late 2032. After that, payroll taxes will only cover about 77% of promised benefits, triggering an automatic 23% haircut. Because of these immense pressures, workers are already rating their own futures. Last year, 6% of workers took a hardship withdrawal from their 401ks, up from 2% just 4 years ago. We are literally eating the seed corn.
Section 5. Change defaults. Fix the arithmetic.
But hey, here is the very good news. This fragility isn't human nature. It's a setting. And because it's just a setting, we can completely change it. Consider 401k participation, which recently hit a record 86%. How did that happen? Well, when a plan requires you to opt in yourself, participation is about 64%. But when the default is simply shifted to automatic enrollment, participation jumps to 94%. Same humans, same wages, same willpower, a 30-point difference. Nobody got magically smarter. Someone just moved the default setting.
And that brings us right back to why Desmond felt so awful in the first place. I want you to meet Gerald. He's a 63-year-old orthodontist living outside Scottsdale with $2.1 million in his retirement accounts. Gerald's a decent guy, very good at teeth, but he is quietly skewing the mean average. He's the exact reason that headline screamed $167,000, making Desmond feel like a total failure. The system basically built a ruler out of everybody, handed it to the guy right in the middle, and let him wrongly conclude he came up short.
But here is the absolute most sobering statistic of all, the one that really keeps you awake at night. The median American household net worth is often touted as roughly $192,900. But if you strip out home equity, because let's be real, you cannot eat your kitchen and you still owe the bank, the median American household's true safety net collapses to just $57,900. That 58 grand cushion is literally all there is to cover retirement, emergencies, layoffs, bad diagnoses, and 30 years of getting old.
So how do you fix your own arithmetic? Well, you can start with these steps. First, stop using the mean. Every single time you hear the word average, ask whose average it is, so you can stop competing with Gerald in Scottsdale. Second, change your defaults. Automate your savings on paydays so the money moves before you can even have an opinion about it. You never want to have to be brave twice. And third, take a really hard look at that $770 car payment. Rethink it and reclaim your wealth.
Once Desmond understood this, he logged in, raised his contribution by 1%, and set it to automatic. Renata finally called her card company, asked for her actual interest rate, and figured out what she was actually fighting. You see, you aren't behind. You've just been measured with a ruler that was built crooked on purpose. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Are you going to keep measuring your life by a ghost, or are you ready to change your defaults and go get the right number?